This past week, Donald Trump posted on his site, Truth Social, quote, "The crooked Joe Biden campaign has thrown so many indictments and lawsuits against me that Republicans are already talking about what we're going to do to Biden and the communists when it's our turn. They've started a whole new banana republic way of thinking about political campaigns. So cheap and dirty. But that's where America is right now. Be careful what you wish for." It's nothing new for Trump to threaten retaliation and cry unfairness, though we shouldn't become immune to his threats of revenge. But his accusation that the United States is becoming a banana republic is noteworthy. The term banana republic was first coined by the author O. Henry 120 years ago in his book, Cabbages and Kings, which focused on a fictional country that he called the Republic of Anchuria. It was loosely based on his experience living in Honduras during a time when that country's economy was almost completely dependent on the export of bananas to the United States. Now, you can't really talk about the modern meaning of the term without acknowledging its history. It reflects the effect that the fruit trade, specifically the export of bananas from Central and South America to the United States in the late 18th and early 1900s, had on Latin America. Many of these countries, including Honduras, Costa Rica, they quickly became reliant on the export of bananas for the vast majority of their economy. These single export economies were incredibly susceptible to corruption and outside influence by trade interests of the U.S.-based companies like the United Fruit Company, which you know now as Chiquita Banana. In Honduras, for instance, the United Fruit Company's monopoly pull within the government led to election manipulation, the misuse of military power, the severe exploitation of native workers, and even a coup led by an American banana industry leader and his local ally. But over time, the term banana republic expanded beyond its more literal application of a republic controlled by the banana industry. The term banana republic now describes an unstable, corrupt government susceptible to corporate or foreign influence, often involving misuse of military and executive power. In claiming that the indictments against him inherently make the United States a, quote, banana republic, Trump is, incorrectly, by the way, saying that any kind of accountability that reaches the highest office of the land is intrinsically corrupt. But really, it's quite the opposite. The indictments that Trump faces, all voted on by a jury of his peers, demonstrates that in America, no one actually is above the law. Accountability at the highest levels of government is a positive thing. It's a sign of a healthy republic. And many of our most respected allies across the globe have held their top leaders accountable in recent history. My colleague Steve Bannon, who was just on with me, compiled a list last month. Italy prosecuted a former prime minister. France prosecuted a former president and a former prime minister. South Africa prosecuted a former president. South Korea prosecuted a former president. Brazil has prosecuted more than one former president. Israel has prosecuted more than one former prime minister and is right now attempting to prosecute the current prime minister. Germany prosecuted a former president. Portugal prosecuted a former prime minister. Croatia prosecuted a former prime minister. Argentina prosecuted a former president. As recently as June, Nicola Sturgeon, the former head of the Scottish government, was arrested on allegations of financial misconduct. And a study conducted last year by LaGrange University in Georgia reviewed nearly 250 cases over the last 50 years of countries that held their leaders to account for alleged misconduct, including indictments, arrests, and imprisonment. And that study found that based on measurements determined by Freedom House, an organization that measures freedom in democracies, the vast majority of those nations became more free. But if you want to dig into it, I can tell you what does have the flavor of a, quote, banana republic. Misusing the military to escort him for a photo op at St. John's Church in D.C. while peaceful protesters marched in response to the murder of George Floyd, or claiming, quote, total authority over federal law enforcement and then using it to target political enemies, or pressuring a foreign ally, Ukraine, to investigate domestic political rivals, or undermining the very institutions of our democracy, eroding the public's faith in our elections, repeatedly lying to the public about election fraud. Or even implicitly influencing followers to threaten election workers, to manipulate and disenfranchise voters who disagree with him. And now, vowing revenge on his political enemies if he is returned to office, because in his words, quote, they are doing it to us. That is Donald Trump's banana republic.